Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to my webinar. Today I have a very special guest, Coach Marvin Powell. Next to Coach Marvin Powell, I don't even know how I could compare. Marvin is a business coach who loves working with small businesses and entrepreneurs. I cannot give him a good enough introduction, so I'm just going to let Marvin tell everybody briefly about himself, and then we're going to get right into today's topic, which I am really looking forward to. Marvin's going to be talking to us about making and keeping the right connections, not just connections, but the right connections. So, Coach Powell, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
You know, it's funny because every time I get a chance to answer that question, who am I? What am I all about? What am I trying to create? I have difficulty because, most people don't know this, but I am an introvert. I am very much all about, trying to come up with various different ideas that help other people open up and share. And so I know technically how to do those types of things, but these are not things that I fall in love with or I'm particularly interested in finding out or exploring more about myself, especially not in a public venue. But I know for sake of introduction, it's very, very important that people know who you are and get a feel for your character. And so for me, um, I love the process of networking, and I fell in love with the process of networking more than 20 years ago, back in my financial services career. Even before I got here to Northern Virginia, I was doing very well in New York City and doing a lot with Prudential Financial Services, which is where I came from. I started my whole life selling life insurance and investment insurance and just all kinds of property and casualty insurance. So I did it all. I had a securities license and everything else. So I did all that in New York City, and then I decided, when I came here, I had to sort of rebrand and restart my brand, my name, everything about me from scratch. And so I had to, use word of mouth. I had to build relationships. I had to learn how to do it really quickly and build trust really, really quickly, not only to establish myself, but to establish a clientele and begin to, feed my family because quite frankly at that time my wife wasn't working. We had just had our first child, our only child, and she was 3 months premature, and so she was in the hospital, and so there was a lot of pressure to perform at that point. And it helped me to get involved and start to network even though didn't feel natural to me. It helped me to just to do that really quickly and just to learn how it was done. So I was lucky enough to be called to be an ambassador for B&I for many, many years. I helped start a lot of the chapters here in Northern Virginia and maintain and manage them. A lot of them are still very successful today. And I talked to Dr. Meisner quite a bit, and I've read his books and everything he has to say about this. And so and of course I continue to update my education when it comes to networking. I have several, authors. I've authored a couple of books and programs and articles myself on creating networking. So these are things that I love to do from the skill set point of view. Now, when it comes to implementation, that means you got to actually get involved hands-on with people. And, that's where I'm like, okay, I can only have a few people in my network because more than, say more than 5 or 6, and I start to fall apart because I can't keep uh, my arms around that many people. So today, we're going to talk a lot about, you know, what it means to, first of all, what it means to network, what networking is. I think people have uh, a crazy definition of what networking is, and it really doesn't make sense. I mean, when you think about it, when we say networking, what does that mean? What does that look like to most professionals? And what it seems to look like to most professionals that I've seen, it means I'm going to give this, an elevator speech that either works or doesn't work, or I'm going to hand out business cards and I'm going to get myself dressed up and I'm going to go out and events, and I'm just going to have FaceTime with people, and I'm going to see what I can do to convince people to see my point of view, to jump on board with me, to do whatever it is I want them to do. And I thought that was really a crazy way to think about networking. So I started to look up definitions of networking. And when we created the Roundtable, which is an organization that my buddy Darren and I have created, we had to sort of redefine what we think networking is. And there are a couple of concepts in our definition of networking that I want to share with you today. the first concept in that definition is, well, let me just give you a definition first. Networking for us is the art and science of developing relationships in such a way as to create leverage and win-win opportunities. And so there are key things in that idea, in that definition, that I think people have to take away with. One is it's the idea of leverage, right? You can't leverage relationships that you don't have. And when you attempt to leverage a relationship before it's time to leverage that relationship, then you damage that relationship. And so people who come in sight on scene and they want to create a transaction with someone often start off on the wrong foot. And now they have to try to, if they intend to build a relationship after that, they have to now recover the trust involved with that relationship. And you want to make sure that before you try to leverage a relationship, you build that relationship to a point where it can be leveraged. Now, when I say trust and creating win-win solutions, I'm not talking about that type of overall, I trust you with my soul and my family and everything, that there is to trust. I mean, I trust you in the space that it's the most responsible to trust you in for the purposes of us working together right now. And that level of trust requires that everybody who's playing does a great job with what I'm going to say is the first 3 steps of working and creating a relationship. Now, for those of you who will know my 9-step process, because you are either involved in an organization of mine or you are a coaching client of mine, you may have seen the 9-step process and understood it. The first 3 steps of that 9-step process for building a professional relationship have everything to do with truly getting to know what you can trust someone else for and what they can trust you for. And, quite immediately, it doesn't take a long time. It might be a meeting or 2, and then what you can start to make promises for, what you can start to deliver to one another, what you can start to create with one another, that you can now leverage and create a small amount of leverage in something small, but then move that leverage up over time into something bigger and bigger and bigger. You don't want to start with superficial stuff, although that's where a lot of people do start with relationships. They start with small talk. And I think if you're serious about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to be, who you're trying to work with, and what you're trying to accomplish, there's really not a lot of room for small talk. Small talk is a great way to open a conversation, but you have to quickly move from small talk to big talk. And big talk is things that really, really sink down to the core of who a person is, what their vision is for their life, what they hope to accomplish, what their dreams are, what would they want to do if things were perfect. And you start asking questions like that to people, you're going to get to not just what they want to do with themselves, but who they are. And that's a key to developing an element of trust with people. When you know who they are, you can create tremendous amount of trust. I know that, one of the pet peeves that I know Gene has and I know I have is when you're working with people all the time and they're just pitching you all the time. They're just pitching you what they want to do. They're trying to influence you. They're trying to push you to do what they want to do. And their agenda is the only thing they could think about. And it's selfish. It's self-centered. It's great to, I'm not saying that you don't have anything that you want to try to create or sell or influence somebody to do. And it's great to do that. But there's a time for that in every relationship. There's a time for that in every conversation where it's natural and it feels and it makes sense. And if it doesn't happen with that person, you're probably talking to the wrong person. If you are in a situation where you're trying to create a relationship that's going to lead to a transaction, but ultimately that person can't answer these 3 questions, and there's only 3 questions. Do they want what you're about to offer them? Do they need what you're about to offer them? Can they or will they afford what you're about to offer them? Because if you don't know the answers to those questions and you try to pitch somebody an idea that they should do something and you don't know those answers, then those same the answers to those questions are going to be the excuses they use for not following up or not doing the next thing they have to do with in the first place. And so what you should be talking up to people about is not what you want to sell them. It should be about those other things somehow in the conversation that help you get an understanding. Oh, okay, they can afford this. Oh, okay, they would really need this because they're answering all the questions the right way, and they really want it. Because they're asking me questions about, well, how can I deliver it to them? Now all of a sudden, they're leaning in. That's the time for you to close. I have a course that I teach called the 100% closing ratio, and it's I gave it that title because people go, oh, that's impossible. You can't have a 100% closing ratio. You can't really, be at bat and win every single time you're at bat when it comes to a potential client or customer and so on and so forth. And I challenge that notion. And the question I ask in the training is, well, what if you could? What if you were swinging for a 100% success ratio? How more careful would you enter into the conversation? How much more careful would you be? Because I think that's the difference between people who win more often and people who lose, because they enter the conversation, the program, the relationship, whatever they're doing, they enter it with a level of commitment to understanding what it's all about, understanding what's going on, understanding how to win in that environment. And when they do that, then you have a higher chance of winning. And so you can have a very high success rate when it comes to closing deals if you do the right work in front of the deal, which most people don't do because they're too busy trying to go with the market average, right? So when you think about marketing, most marketing professionals will tell you if you get a 1, maybe a 2% open rate or 1 or 2% closing rate, that's kind of good. But in the world of networking, if out of 100 people, only 1 or 2% respond to you well, you have to understand that 99% of the people did not respond to you well. You can't come back into that room again. You can't come back into that environment again, with a level of integrity, because you've just, pardon my French, screwed the pooch with 99% of the people, right? That doesn't make any sense. And I think people forget that human relationships are not something that you just can use marketing strategy and marketing averages to deal with. People are people, and everybody has to be treated the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to treat them. And if you treat them the way they want to be treated, which is not just the golden rule, but it's sort of the platinum rule, right? You treat people the way they want to be treated, then you have a higher chance of being successful with that person. The investment that you're making is paying attention to them and listening to them. And so there's the first that kind of leads me into the first 3 steps of the 9-step process. And step 1 is listening. You must learn how to listen if you're going to have a process that's going to involve people. Because people need to be, not just want to be, but need to be understood. They need to be considered. They need to be respected. They need to be thought of as an individual. They don't need to be thought of as a number or as a cog in a system, because anytime you take a person's individuality away from them and you take that their the core, the dignity of their humanity away from them, and then you're going to try to do something with them that's going to be meaningful to them, understand that whatever you're doing is colored with your disrespect and disregard. And I think that that's very, very important when it comes to people. So listening is the first part of the process. And we teach people that, it's a full day course on just learning how to listen. And the second step in the process is understanding what promise is. When people have promise, when people have talent, when they have gifts, when they have abilities, understanding what that really is. What is their real gift? What is their real talent? And then creating an environment by which they could grow that gift. And so they can make the promise then, or you can make the promise to help them with that gift, whatever it is they're gifted at. So you have to be, willing to engage in conversation enough to figure out, okay, what can this person really offer? What can this person really bring to the table? Where can this person shine? And often it has nothing to do with the product or service that they want to sell. It may have a lot to do with what they do for fun, or what they love, what kind of things they love thinking about or talking about. And then you get into conversations that can resonate, and then you can create a higher quality connection with them because you're talking about something that they're passionate about, something that's important to them. Nobody has a gift, that they want to just see go unfulfilled. They don't have a talent that they just want to be ignored, for whatever that talent is. They don't want that to happen. And I remember you and I were talking about working out, right? And we're talking about, what happens if you don't work out, right? If you don't work out, you feel like crap, right? If you do work out, you feel good, right? It's a part of your habit. It's become a part of who you are. It's a part of how you define your successful day. Starting out with, I'm going to get my body moving. I'm going to put maybe some resistance on this thing, or I'm going to do something to run, or whatever it is that you do to get yourself moving and going. You're paying attention to a natural rhythm that you've built in. And so when you don't pay attention to it, you don't feel natural. You don't feel right. You don't feel like things are working right, right? And so that's understanding that you've built those habits and that principle into your life. And if a person says to you, well, Gene, that working out thing, you probably shouldn't do that. You're wasting a lot of time that you could be doing some other things. They're not going to get very far with you.
Correct.
That's not going to make sense to you. You're going to be like, what are you nuts? Here's what happens if I don't work out. I feel like crap. My body starts to fall apart. If I don't do it for days, I can't even imagine not doing it for days. If I don't do it for days, then I'm gonna start cheating on my diet. Everything is gonna start. I'm gonna start looking for all kinds of excuses for not doing things that I need to get done, and I'm gonna feel unproductive. I'm gonna feel like I don't have value anymore. This is gonna hit me right to my core. And if a person says, well, that's not really, just it's all in your head, they have no credibility. They've lost all credibility with you. Right?
Yeah, and it's also insulting because if we're having a conversation about that, you should know how important it is to me, and to tell me that the half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour, not always an hour, that I spend every day is a waste of my time, that's insulting. Even though deep down I know you're incorrect, yeah, like you've automatically lost me on, whatever you're trying to do.
Right. So if you don't try to pay attention to a person's passions and their habits and the things that make them them, then you really don't know them. You can't say that I know you. You can't say that I understand you, that I get you, especially when you're standing in the way of them or trying to stand in the way of them doing what they know is good for them. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so I think we do each other a disservice when we don't pay attention. And that's part of understanding how to deal with promise, how to create promise, how to help people maximize the benefit of their promise. Now, I also know there's something else you have as a result of your workout routine and your history in that you probably know a little something about commitment. You probably know a little something about drive. You probably know a little something about what it takes to push through, even when you don't feel like pushing through. That other people can benefit from. So instead of them engaging you in conversation about, why you shouldn't do that thing, they should be engaging you in conversation about, what did you learn from this? What did you learn most about yourself from this? And then just watch you light up as you explain it, because it's going to happen. Once you find somebody what somebody loves, what they're passionate about, you got to ask that deeper, more meaningful question about it. If it's a dog that they love, they love walking their dog or whatever that is, and they do it every day religiously, rain or shine, whatever that is, and they enjoy that process, you ask them that question. What is it that you enjoy about that? Why does that work for you so much in your life? And trust me, it's going to be more about than just walking the dog, because walking the dog is the right thing to do. It's going to be about the connections they receive, the feelings they have, how it makes them feel, how connected to nature or whatever it is that they're doing. And you're going to find out more about it. And if you you didn't go, that's amazing. I never thought about that before, because I don't do that kind of stuff. And you know what? If I ever start that kind of things like that, would you mind if I call you every once in a while and just let you know what's going on with me, and maybe get a tip on how I might be able to improve? Would that be okay with you? Are you going to have a problem answering that question?
Of course not.
Right. Guess what? You now have a reason to follow up in the relationship, because now you might even say, you know what, I suggest you read this article. I suggest you go to these sources of material to really, before you get started, you might want to try this, that, and the other. Here's what's working well for me. You're getting into a conversation, has nothing to do with what you do, but everything to do with who you are, and it's everything to do that connects you to people. And I think we forget that when we're off in building these networking relationships. We forget that until we have those kinds of connections, we haven't earned the right to even begin a relationship. So you have to understand how to listen. You have to understand how to find out what somebody has, where somebody has promised, and how to exercise that and massage that promise so that it could be something meaningful for a relationship. And the next thing you have to do, you have to follow up and follow through. And now I see many people get into amazing conversations with people, and that's it. There's no follow up. There's no follow through. There's no what's next. And that to me is the worst thing. It's like having, and I often tell people when it comes to relationships and professional relationships, you have to think about it. Only thing we can know about it, because most of this stuff isn't written down. There's not a lot of courses about it. When it comes to professional relationships, think about it like dating, right? If you have an amazing date with someone, or you perceive it as an amazing date, I mean, you just had just a great time, and you both say, "Oh, wow, this was amazing. Yes, this was amazing." You walk away believing this was a great date, and then crickets. You get, as the kids would say today, ghosted. Right? There's nothing else, right? There's nothing that happens. There's no follow up. There's no phone call. There's no email. There's no nothing. How's that feel?
Terrible.
I mean, it's got to suck, right? It can't be. The thing about that, you got yourself all worked up. You're going out to this professional networking meeting. You've decided, I'm going to get my act together. I'm going to put my makeup on. I'm going to, get my look right. Then I'm going to be happy about it when I walk out of here. I'll make sure I got my cards with me, my elevator pitch or personal relationship, whatever personal introduction is pitch perfect. It's great. I can't wait. I'm going to get out here. I'm going to deliver the goods. Everybody claps and says how wonderful I did. And then nothing. That happens all the time to people. And then they go back and they say, well, that networking stuff sucks. It doesn't really work. Well, they created zero engagement. And so there was nothing for them to follow up on. They made no promises that anybody said, yes, I'd like to do that. I want to participate. I want to play. I want to get involved. I want to grow with you. And now all of a sudden, they're wondering, well, this networking stuff, it really doesn't work. And that's about, because they're usually thinking about transaction versus relationship. And even then they're talking about trying to have a relationship with everybody versus having a relationship with somebody. And, it's just not human. You can't have a relationship with everybody. Get back to the dating analogy again. If you are a person that's known to have relationships with everybody in the dating world, what do they call you? It's not a good thing, right? People want to have commitments, right? They want you to be committed to, whatever it is that they're committed to. So that's why it's very, very important. You got to be careful. If you already have a CPA that, you refer business to, that you have a great relationship with, and it's a back and forth, and it's just a great relationship with, you're not going to be open to developing a relationship with a new CPA. It doesn't matter, who it is, because you love the person that you're working with already, the person that you already have this relationship with already. And so it always floors me when people go, well, I will just add you to a list of other professionals that, I refer. I don't want to be on the list with 10 coaches. That is not love to me. I expect my friends to be my friends, to be looking out for me and what I need in my business. Now, I'm not saying that other coaches can't do different things that I do and might be referred to by my friends for those things. But if you have a client that's right in my wheelhouse, right in my perfect spot, and you refer them to 5 other people who you think are just like me, what is that saying about how you feel about me?
Well, I got to stop you right there, Marvin, because I don't think anybody else is just like you. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, because
you're on your own list of just Marvin.
Right. I'd rather be just Marvin. Right. That'd be great.
Plus, that's the only person on that list.
I think that's critically important. I think when people sometimes they forget that people deserve to be distinct. They deserve to have their own space in your heart and mind. And if they have to share that space, then they're not special. And if they're not special, you don't have relationship. You don't have relationships with people that you don't consider them to be special. If they're not special, then they're just bring me your huddle masters yearning to be free. They're nobody. They're nothing. They don't really count as individuals. They count as a greater vision of humanity, but they don't count as an individual. And that's what everybody wants. That's what makes success happen. It's not what you do or how many you do it for. It's who you relate to, who knows you, who understands you, who wants to work with you, who wants to be a part of your success, who's willing to make those investments in you of time, effort, energy, sometimes even money. And if you don't know how to create those relationships, well, then you got a problem. So the first steps through the process of the 9 steps is really about how you create and maintain relationships. You always have to be listening to people in your network. You always have to be making promise and helping people grow their promise. And you always have to be following up and following through on those promises and the promises that you make. If you don't do those things, then you're right. The minute you stop doing any of those 3 things, you're out of relationship. And you're into what we had. We don't have it anymore. But we had it for a moment, maybe back when we were in college, or back when we were sorority sisters or fraternity brothers, or back when we, were on the swim team together. We were in relationship because we saw each other regularly and we practiced those first 3 steps. But the minute you stop practicing those first 3 steps with a person, and I don't care if it's on the phone or if it's in video, in my book, you lose the opportunity to leverage that relationship. And you have to kickstart it all over again. So even if you got there to a high level relationship with somebody and you didn't do anything with it, it just kind of died, it just kind of sat there, and you're coming back at it 5 years later, you got to restart it all over again. Mm-hmm. You can't just go from, oh, I know somebody who could now invest in my business or share some of their resources with me. No, you're out of relationship. You got to go back in. You got to kickstart that relationship all over again. And so my thought is, don't lose it. If they were special enough to bring into your relationship, then create a system and a process, which I've already created, that will help you bring that person into a relationship with you and maintain that relationship.
Before we get into maintaining, because I do want to talk about follow-up and follow-through, Sarah White actually asked a question, which led me, I should have said this earlier. Anybody that's watching, feel free to write a question in the chat, in the comments, and we'll answer it. We want this to be interactive. If you've ever watched my lives and Marvin's, we like the interaction. So Sarah White said, how many people would be a good number for your network?
Okay, so I love this question. I get this question all the time. And because that question depends on the kind of energy that you can put out. There are some people who can put out a tremendous amount of energy, right? Those are usually people who might consider themselves extroverts, and they can handle anywhere from, I would say, 10 to 12 people in what I would call their inner circle. And I define that inner circle as people that you trust so well that you don't mind, and in fact, you promote them getting to know each other. If people are in your inner circle, they don't know other people in your inner circle, something's missing. Why aren't you sharing your inner circle with the other people that are in your inner circle? Because, there should be enough amongst them all that they could all be together in the same room. And so if you think about that, if you had 10 or 12 people of that relationship that are all in the same room, and they're all, and they have some requirements here now. Because if you have a relationship that's not diverse, if you have relationships or inner circle that's not diverse, that doesn't bring any value to each other back and forth, then I got a feeling you have what's called a good old boys network. And it's closed, which means everybody looks alike, thinks alike, and comes from the same situation, come from the same environment, the same industry, and you're not even welcome. You're not even looking for new people to come in. If you don't have that kind of network, then I think your network is broken, because you're going to have to bring new people into your network. And you're going to have to jettison people who are no longer functioning well in your network.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're an introvert, you can have 10 to 12. If you're an extrovert, you can have 10 to 12. If you're an introvert like me, maybe 5 or 6.
Now, I know that nobody can believe Marvin is an introvert. I still don't believe it, but he says he's an introvert. So there's only 5 or 6 people in his inner circle.
It's really crazy because I've taken that test all my life, all my professional life, and every year I come back. I try to cheat that test. I try to, I try to make myself an extrovert. I know how to act like an extrovert. I know the skills of an extrovert. And so I know when I need to be extroverted and I need to grab that extroverted energy, I can do it for a short period of time. But after that, I'm like, I'm burnt out. I burn out quick. And then I was like, okay, I got to have a drink. I need a nap, something, to reboot myself, because it's just too much people energy for me. And I don't want to make promises that I can't deliver because there's too many people, and then I feel bad about it. So I got to keep my circle small, because that way I can always stand up to my word and deliver on expectation really, really well. That's critically important, because when you find that you can't, when you stretch yourself too thin, even as an extrovert, and extroverts tend to do this more than introverts. When you stretch yourself out there too thin and you've got all these commitments and all these promises, even subtle promises and commitments or expectations from other people, and you can't deliver, now you feel bad. Mm-hmm. And it starts to work against you.
That's actually a good segue into Joe's question. I think Joe said, should you limit the number of networking groups you are in? If yes, how many?
That depends on where you are in terms of your skills. All right. I believe that you should have as many networking groups as you are skilled to handle in terms of your ability to handle relationships. If you find yourself not having follow-ups, not having meetings outside of the normal group getting together, then you probably have too many groups, because the quality in our relationships comes from the person. It comes from the strategy session. It comes from, or the one-to-one relationship. And it's not going to be from the group relationship. It's going to be from the individual relationship. And to your extent that in your week or in your month or whatever series of time you have, if you're not getting together with people individually, then you're wasting your time, because that's where trust is built. It's not built in the big group meeting. You might get attraction in the big group meeting. Your eyes meet across the crowded room. Something about him says, ooh, I need to talk to that person. They got swagger or whatever it is that, that makes you think I need to consider building a relationship with that person, right? Maybe they say something smart or intelligent, or maybe they introduce somebody and it shows that they're open to, creating a relationship. And that's great. But you may not have the bandwidth to handle it because you're already stretched too thin. So it's all about, do you have the skills? Do you have the time to create new relationships?
Actually, his question made me think of something else. He
Mhm.
specifically said, should you limit the number of networking groups? Now, we started this conversation off by talking about networking and that people have a, a skewed version of what networking actually is.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to see if you can maybe talk about that, like talk specifically about networking groups. Like, is it the fact that it's a networking group you might stretch yourself too thin? Should you be careful about the types of groups that you join?
I think once you become a skilled networker and you know what you're doing, you've got your skills down, you know how to do this, how to create relationships really really well, then a networking group itself, you've kind of run out of juice with that. You probably need to be going to association meetings. You probably need to be going to conferences where people in your target area or target market are going to be playing most often. At that point, you're moving out of, I'm trying to build relationships, until I'm trying to build, I mean, the kind of masterful relationships that are going to take me there. And I was talking to one of my customers about this just yesterday. There's something, a concept I created called the golden shepherd concept. And the golden shepherd is, sort of think of that person as the king of associations. This is the person who, in your case, Gene, might be the leader of the local bar association, or maybe the section in the local bar association that's related to your market niche. That person who's most likely been a section leader for a long time, or they've been involved with, that situation for a long time, they're probably going to know other players that can handle additional work that maybe you can't handle. So say your marketing strategy was so amazing that you were generating more work than you can handle, right? Which is what you hope to create.
Mm-hmm.
So now you need to have others that you trust that can carry that brand for help carry your brand forward and help handle the spillover opportunities that you may take but you don't really want. They're not really the right thing for you at this time. And maybe somebody else can handle it, take care of the customer. You still win because that person is now in a now enter into a reciprocal relationship with you, where there's reciprocity, because they may bump into some cases that are just perfect for you, and vice versa. But you can't do that by networking at a networking meeting. You got to go network at the bar association, and you have to have the king of the bar association, the chief captain of that section, say, okay, you two people, you all need to get together. You need to work it out, because I think there's something special between the two of you all, that you can benefit from each other. Now if it's somebody of the same age as you, it's somebody who's the same gender as you, and working in the same marketplace as you, doing the same work that you're doing, this is not necessarily going to be a good fit, right? You need somebody who has enough differentiation that they can do similar stuff, but not exactly the same way you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you can create synergy around. But you can't get there day one in networking. You have to learn the tips, the tools, the strategies. And that's where I think your networking groups, so to speak, we should never even call them networking groups, because quite frankly, they're just lead share groups. They're just, how can we sell to each other groups typically, when it comes to what they see. Even if they call themselves networking groups, they're not about relationships, they're about transaction. Because what do they measure? They
Well,
don't measure quality of relationship, they measure transaction.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, networking, could be a very broad concept.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not. You said there's a very specific definition of what it is, but people don't view it that way.
Right.
So there are lead share groups, there's chambers of commerce, there's all sorts of different groups that people can spend their time and money in. So yeah, I guess maybe if we could talk for a minute about specifically networking groups, lead shares versus other types of groups, and would you suggest that somebody ever be in a lead share?
If what you do is only a transaction, and it will never be relationship, it's just about transaction, then you need a lead share group. But if what you do has to do with relationship, then a lead share group is going to steer you in the wrong direction. Your marketing program itself, whether it's your website or your whatever lead generation systems and tools you use, should generate leads for you, right? Your networking organization should not generate leads for you. Your networking organization should generate closed deals and business for you. Because if you have to work for it outside of the work of building relationships, it's not really networking. It's sales and marketing.
Now, shouldn't everybody want to be building relationships and not just transactions? Because you can have transactions all day long, but if it doesn't turn into repeat business or clients that are happy with you, or relationships with people, they won't necessarily come back to you in the future.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And one of the things I try to teach, people in the roundtable and my clients is your professional relationships. That's why you can't have thousands of them, right? You can only have a few. And they're going to deliver to you more than just transactions. They're going to deliver their other talents and their other skills to you. Because, if I have somebody who's a friend of mine who knows how to build websites, and they know my websites suck, and they don't at least offer to me to say, Marvin, let me give you a quick consultation of what you might want to think about doing with your website. Are they my friend?
No.
You got to think about that. If I have a friend, and I do this all the time, I have friends and I listen to their personal presentations or their elevator speeches or whatever, and they are horrible. There is no way I would introduce them to someone else, because they're going to say to someone else what they just said to me. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this to my friends. So what am I going to do? I'm going to help my friend. I'm going to say, listen, your elevator speech needs a little work. You need to read this. And I'm going to give them something that they could do, or something, exercises. I might even volunteer to help them write one, because it's so important to me that they look better than they currently look. And if I have the skill that I'm not going to share, not with the people that I care about, that makes me a horrible friend. So think about that. I mean, people, when we're working on these things, we often tend to, again, think about them as just transactions. And the minute we do that, we kill what everybody could naturally bring to the table. I was talking to one of my customers again, and she was saying to me, she has a associate of hers who's great at photography and videography, and he happens to be a bartender in their restaurant. Right? Now, if she could help him grow that talent for videography or photography for her own business, they could open up a whole different event division in that business that would feature the work from this person who is growing their skills and talent as a photographer, videographer. And not just make more money, but take that talent and nurture that talent that person has, and allow that talent to have the space to grow into something that can be massively productive. Why wouldn't you do that? Oh, well, you're just a bartender. You have to stay right there in your role. That's stupid. That's not people-centric. That is transaction-centric. It's like, your job description is your job description. You got to stay right there within your job description. Nobody's going to give you the flexibility, the freedom to move, to grow in that thing, to do anything else. That's limiting. That's horrible leadership. That's horrible relationship. Everything is bad about that. You can't keep that person if you don't keep them growing. And that's in any relationship, whether it's personal or private. And so I say, my mother used to say this. Two things she'd say to me when God rest her soul. She'd say, dance with the one that brought you. Right? And then she would say, always start like you're going to finish. And so if you start a relationship based on transaction, the chances this thing is going to get deeper, not too good. But if you start this relationship off with some meaning, with some substance, some energy that transfers back and forth to people, the chances of you keeping that relationship and moving that relationship into something great is much higher. And so when you're asking yourself the question, when you're sizing people up, you're out there in networking space and you're going, okay, is this person going to be somebody who could add to my business, add to my life, give me something, or create something? Is this somebody that I want to invest in? Do I want to put time, effort, and energy into this person? When you're asking yourself these questions, these are the right questions you should be asking. But when you're just going, I just want to get to know you, that's useless. I don't want to get to know anybody. I want to see if there's an opportunity for us to work together, for us to leverage each other, for us to create something. But to know you just for the sake of knowing you, again, my introvert comes out and goes, well, I'm sorry. I got enough friends. I'm looking for partners. I'm looking for people that can, like, I can help me move my life forward. I have a mission, I have a vision, I have an agenda, and I'm looking for people who can help support that and get on board with that. And for people whose mission and agenda that I can help support and get on board with it. So I'm constantly looking for my people. And I'm hoping that when I find them and they find me, we can have something special. And it often works out that way for me. Because when I build a relationship with people, they know it's genuine. They know it's real, and they trust it fast. That's another myth I think people say all the time. Oh, trust takes a long time to build. It does, especially if you don't know how to get to it in the first place. I mean, it does take a long time to build. If you can't think about what it would take for you to give the trust to someone, if you don't know what it is, you certainly couldn't tell them, this is how you can earn my trust. As a skill, though, I think every networker has to be able to say, here's what has to happen for you to earn my trust. And if you really want it, you'll do these things. And for me, like, first of all, you can't try to sell me the first time you see me. You're going in the wrong direction right there. Right?
Everybody hear that? Don't sell Marvin. Don't do it.
You're going in the wrong direction, and that's not going to earn my trust. If you really want to earn my trust, then I'm going to have to see some third-party influence. No matter how much I like you, no matter how much I'm impressed with you, no matter how funny we are and how humorous and whatever that is that can happen, we're having a great time. But if I don't see other people who fall in love with you, who trust you, if I don't know them, if I don't hear the testimonials, if I don't see the recommendations, if I don't understand that other people are connected to you somehow, some way, then we got nothing. Because it's just fun for now. I mean, this can't go any deeper, because it wouldn't be responsible for me to open up my world, my resources, my relationships to somebody who hasn't been vetted in that way. Think about it. I like that word, vetted, right? So if a person is trying to get a high level government job, they can't get it unless they're vetted, unless they pass the right security protocols, unless they pass the right credit checks, unless they pass the right kinds of assessments into their character and all that kind of stuff. You got to be vetted. And if you don't have a vetting process in your own networking, then everybody's getting right into your inner circle right away. That there is dangerous. And people,
how are people getting into your inner circle, into a person's inner circle? If I don't have the right vetting process, how are people just able to get into my inner circle? I'm just using myself as an example. How does that happen? How do they get in my inner circle?
Well, they don't have a fence, so those are just walking in the fence. They're walking in right in the front
They
door.
just walk right into my fence.
That's right.
Without me even knowing it.
You see them coming, but you don't have any fence.
So I can't stop them.
You can't stop them. There's no process.
I'm a little bit confused about this. How is everybody getting into, and this is just hypothetical, how are they all getting into my inner circle if I don't have the right, how does that happen to somebody? How do all these people get in your inner circle if you don't have the right vetting process?
So you're out there and you're networking, right? Let's just say, you even online, if you're going to online events or using YouTube or whatever it is you're using, Facebook, whatever that is, and you're sort of out and about on social media, right? People are posting stuff on your page. People are, having discussions with other people that seem to be associated with you. You can't control any of that. You don't know. People can just take your name and say, okay, Gene, and just tag you in some argument that if you had your wits about you, you'd never allow your brand to be associated with this discussion or this argument. But people have tagged you because they feel like you're a valid person. And so because you're a valid person or a person that they want to bring along, you now are involved in a party that you didn't even invite yourself in. Or do you didn't even want to go into? Why? Because you don't have a fence. you don't have anything that would suggest to people that no, hell no, don't do this to me. Don't play these. You don't have any rules. You don't have any governing strategy or techniques to prevent that from happening. And so it happens. People invite you to places where you don't want to go, and then you have to say no. And it's never easy because now you're rejecting somebody and you're rejecting somebody, right? So it'd be better to lead with your agenda right up front and go, okay, here's what I'm all about. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I'm trying to see in my life. Here's what I'm trying to grow to. And people who see that go, oh, I get that. I like that. And yes, let's play. It's different. One of the great examples I give is I remember when I was as a child, I was a military brat, so I moved from place to place all the time. And I had to reinvent myself and make new friends everywhere I went. I just had to, or I would never play with anybody else. I just would be alone. And so sometimes my mother would just say, just go outside and play. And so I think, okay, who did I get off the bus with at school, and which house did they go into? And okay, that kid, okay. So then I would go and I would knock on the door. And I would say, and I might not even know their name, but I would say, if the parents answered the door, I would say, could your son come out and play? If an older person answered the door, I would say, could your son or your daughter come out and play? And it was a risk. But if I didn't take that risk, I would never play. So it's the same thing in networking. People can just come walk up right to your door. Knock, 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 knock. Can Gene come out and play? And Gene has to go, uh-oh. I don't play with people like you. I'm not sure. Let's see. And you got to come, if you don't have a strategy to quickly discern what to do with this inquiry, this person trying to establish themselves in your world, then you're going to feel like a victim all day, every day, because people have an agenda. They want to play with you.
People really do have an agenda. That is what we were talking about transactions and trying to sell you.
And they want to play the game that they want to play. When I was really good, I would show up with my basketball. I'm like, oh, I have a basketball. Do you happen to play basketball? Do you want to play basketball? If they say, no, I don't like basketball, then I just move on to another kid. But, I think that you have to have the best defense from other people's agenda is having one of your own. And be looking to play with the people that you want to play with the way you want to play. And I think that until you figure that out, then everybody can just walk up into your yard and go, hey, I decided I wanted to play in your yard today.
Well, Marvin, let me ask you a question. Do people constantly come up and knock on your door and say, I want to play? Or have you been able to build that electric fence so they don't get onto your property?
Oh, yeah, we got a good fence up. Generally, first of all, only the bold even try, because they see the fence. They go, oh God, that guy, he's really serious. He's going to shut me down if I come at him incorrectly, and they know it, or they sense it, and they don't want to get rejected, so they just don't try. But the bold do continue to try, and that's good because I like the bold. Those are the people that I like to play with anyway. And then we laugh and we get together and we find ways to work together. But, the shrinking violets who are not sure about what they really want or what they want to do or how they're going to come at it and all that kind of stuff, they usually don't come into my yard. This kid, the big dog, might bite him.
Well, you got to get a dog that's just as equally big that's not scared of the other big dog.
Oh, I love another big dog.
I'm probably like the little dog, though, that has the personality of the big dog.
The attitude. I love a little Chihuahua with attitude. Love it. Bring it. Let's go. We can have a lot of fun.
Sarah asked a question. Sarah White, is there a point where taking that risk comes on too strong? I think she probably means being bold and coming up to your door, Marvin, and knocking.
I think that there's a level that everybody likes to play at, and finding the right level where you like to play and other people like to play is about experience. And so, like I said earlier, I love the big, bold person. I love the person who's going to come at it and say, here's what I'm all about, and lay all the cards out on the table. Can you help me? But the person who comes to me and says, can you help me? And I don't have any other information other than that answer is no. I can't help you. You don't know what you want. You don't know where you're going. You don't know why you're trying to get there. I can't help you. But if you lay all the cards out on the table, here's what I want. Here's what I'm all about. Here's what I'm trying to get to. Let's play. But but certain people are uncomfortable with that. I'm not. Certain people are like, well, I want to talk about the superficial stuff. I want to talk about the Redskins. I want to talk about the weather. I want to talk about, what kind of car you drive. Okay, those are not my people, because I don't have time for that. I only have a certain small bandwidth of time, and I got to get right to the action right away. Because again, think about it from a military brat point of view. I never knew when my dad was going to pull up and we was anchors away to someplace else. And so when I was playing with my friends, we did not have time to play around. It's just we had to get right to the fun. I had to get right to it, because we could be gone any minute now. Dad got orders. We got to go to L.A. Oh, Dad got orders. We got to go. So I think that growing up in that, I learned that people are with you for a season, and while you're with them, you got to get everything you can out of that opportunity. And if you don't, then you've wasted that opportunity for another day or maybe some other time. We don't have any other time. All we have is right now. So let's make the promises. Let's make the commitments. Let's see what we can do together, and let's play. That, to me, is what real networking is all about, is working together to create something better than you can create by yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. And if you're not doing that, what are you doing? Somebody's talking in the back. I don't know who that is. That's not in my world. Anyway, is there any other questions out there? Anything you can think of that you want to talk about? Because we are at an hour now, it looks like.
Yeah, I knew this hour would go by quick. Well, Darren left a very provocative comment. He said there's no better dog than a pug.
They are cute. I
know Darren's watching. Thank you, Darren, for the comment. Marvin, I don't even know where to start. I have so many questions. Like I can't even start because I'll just talk for hours. I'll just ask you questions for hours.
So just go. Let's go. Let's play.
I'm curious as to how any person can create this fence to keep people from getting into their inner circle. Just whether it's online or whatever it is. How does this happen? How do people? I know people don't just get into your inner circle,
Right.
but and I'm sure you've had, well, I mean, if you're able to figure that out from the beginning, that's great. But I'm sure you probably learned lessons about how to keep out the wrong people. So I guess, again, I say this every time. I need to be more concise with my questions. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. How does
So
one try to?
I think I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And the answer to the question is, when you have a strategy, a process that you're working through, it runs the day. Your strategy, your process, your business plan, your marketing plan, whatever plan, strategy, process that you're working on is your work. And so it doesn't matter what other people are doing because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I think oftentimes when we think about networking, we think about relationships, and we think that we can't control them. And the reality is we control what we pay attention to. And I pay attention to people whose litmus test, who pass my litmus test. And people who don't pass my litmus test, I don't pay attention to.
But if you don't pay attention to them, though, you're rejecting them, right? So if they're trying to get, but you mentioned this a little while ago, you're in a position where somebody tries to get into your world or your circle, and you have to say no, and you don't want to be in the position to say no. So you want people to know whether or not they can even try to get in. So how do you balance that?
So here, I lead with my agenda. I lead with my plan. I lead with my strategy instead of waiting passively for a plan to show up or a strategy to show up, somebody else's strategy to show up. So when people when they meet me immediately, they know, okay, here's what this guy's all about. Here's what he can do. Here's what he can give to the table. Here's what he can bring. And they get to decide now, do they want to play in my world? Do they have something to offer that can help me do what I do better? Or do they want to try to pivot me into something that they're interested in? And if they've actually listened to me, then they know enough to know how to build a relationship with me.
How do you get them to listen to you? Now, everybody that ever talks to, I don't mean Marvin, because everybody should listen to Marvin. If you're not listening to Marvin, you're crazy. You shouldn't be watching the show. But how would somebody else get people to actually listen to them and pay attention to them? I mean, that sounds silly, but most people don't because they're transactional.
You got to say relevant things. And so what I mean by that is, let's think about when we introduce ourselves, what's irrelevant. All right. Your name is irrelevant. The name of your company is irrelevant. What you do is irrelevant. So if you're saying those things right up front, all you're saying is me, 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 me. I'm important. I'm special. I'm meaningful. I'm everything. But if you say up front things that engage people, like an open-ended question, who do you know that's involved with small businesses and small business finance in particular? I have a friend named Joe. Joe is one of the most marvelous bankers you're ever going to get a chance to meet. But he's stressed out to the high heavens right now because every small business in the world is coming at him, it seems like, looking for a loan, looking for an opportunity, and they just don't have the basic things they need to have in place in order to make it easy for Joe to give them the money they need for their processes, for their organizations to survive what this COVID-19 happens is. I happened to talk to Joe. He's telling me about one of the problems that he was having. And I said, Joe, you know what? You might want to think about shuffling some of those people off to somebody like a business planner or a business coach or a strategist, because they can vet those people before they even come to you and make sure that those loan applications may make sense for you to pay attention to, and so you don't have to waste your time rejecting people who are not ready. He said, that's a great idea, Marvin. He said, could you help me with that? I said, I don't know. Tell me what kinds of people that you find that you having problems with getting the loan process to. And he described those people. And I was like, oh, there's some simple things they could do. Let me work with them. He gave me 5 names of 5 people that he thinks that might be great, but they just need a little polishing up. I was able to polish them up real quickly and help them get those loans processed. I'm looking for more people like Joe who are involved in the business finance strategy and are sick and tired of rejecting people and would like to be in a situation where they can say yes to more people. Who do you know who fits that description? My name is Marvin Powell. I run Coach Powell Training Development, and I love small businesses. That particular introduction makes people pay attention. The reason why it makes people pay attention, because it wasn't boring. There was a story. There was some drama associated with it, some pain associated with it. A hero came in and saved the day. It met the strategies of how we learn and how we as human beings listen to one another. We like listening to stories. We hate listening to data and statistics and numbers and jargon. We can't stand that stuff. But that's the first thing a professional says when they open up their mouth. Is a bunch of stuff that makes me not want to talk to you anymore. But if you said something like I just said, people go, "So tell me more. How do you do that again?" If I knew somebody, what should I say to them? They're asking me questions now because it causes engagement, and they'll remember the story. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you lead with a great positioning statement, 60-second elevator speech, whatever you want to call it, if you know how to present your story, your ideas, your concepts in a way that wake people up, make them pay attention, then what's going to happen is they're going to pay attention. And now you have to do something and give them something to do with that attention. In the case that I just gave you, you simply just tell the story to the person that you know that's in business finance.
So the way to get people to listen is to know your agenda and basically tell them your agenda from the beginning in an interesting way. If you just say, I'm Marvin Powell, I help small businesses, they're going to stop listening.
Right. So what? So what? That's not self-serving. But if you tell them how they can serve their friends, how they could use you to help their friends, that's valuable.
Mm-hmm. I'm still working on.
I see the wheels turning in your brain, right?
I'm still thinking of the best way to say that. That's interesting, but I gotta talk to Marvin a little bit more if he would spend his talent and treasure talking to me.
You have the 5 elements of perfect presentation right in your toolbox already.
I have all of Marvin's tools I have in my toolbox, because when he mentions something, I make a note of it and I go to the website where it is and I find it. And probably one of the best things I ever did was join the roundtable, which is now meeting virtually. Oh, I forgot about that. You mentioned the roundtable several times. Can you tell people a little bit about it that don't know what it is?
So the roundtable is like networking training 101. It's like boot camp for networkers. Really, when you think about it, the reason why we created it in the first place is because I realized that people don't know what they're doing when it comes to networking. And we need to create an environment where they can learn how to do it and practice it. And so that's what the roundtable is all about. Learning how to use the skills, the techniques, the tactics of masterful networking and practicing it with people that you can practice together and learn. And then the goal for me is to, when you're a roundtable member, to take the things that we teach you at the roundtable and then take them outside of the roundtable, anywhere, where the Chamber of Commerce or association meetings or wherever else you network with people, Christmas parties, whatever. You're going to become magical because you're going to learn the tools that it takes to become a masterful networker at the roundtable.
Darren, who left a comment here, Darren's the co-organizer of the roundtable. Sarah, if she's still on, is she in the roundtable?
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah's in the roundtable.
You two are our newest members.
Oh. I enjoy the roundtable very much. So with the, I'm glad that it's virtual right now. With the court schedule before all the shutdowns, it was hard for me to make it all the time. But
Right.
I now go as much as I can because I'm not going to miss that opportunity because of the people that Marvin allowed into his circle to be in the roundtable. It's a very great group of people, and I really enjoy it. Seriously, I get something out of it every meeting, so I love
So
it.
most of the roundtable members, they just wander along. You know, they wander in from all kinds of places. They're not a part of my individual
Oh,
network.
sorry, I didn't mean to imply.
You know, because I'm very, you know, what's the word I'm trying to use? I'm picky, for lack of better words, about who gets into Marvin's inner circle, because I want to make sure I spend time with them. I want to make sure I can dedicate resources to them to help them grow, as well as, you know, have leverage to use their talents and skills to help me grow. And so very picky about that one. But the roundtable is a place where we learn the strategies of masterful networking, and how to build professional relationships. I guess one of the, I think this is a cute question. I was doing a workshop with a group called 40 Plus, and this is a group that's dedicated to helping people who've been outsized, right size, downsized, wrong size, whatever you want to call it, and they're older, right? So they're looking to reinvent themselves and get back in the workplace. And one of the guys, and he was as serious as a heart attack. He kept saying to me, you know, I've been trying to get people to mentor me, but nobody will mentor me. And I need a mentor, but nobody will mentor me. And I said, you know, your biggest problem there is, I know exactly what your biggest problem there is. You're asking people to mentor you. Mm-hmm. And everybody in the room was like, well, why is that a problem? If I'm looking for a mentor, why shouldn't I ask people to mentor me? That's like walking up to the first person that you see and saying, I want you to marry me. Would you do that?
Nope.
You know, if you would, that says a lot about who you are, you know, as a person, right? But if you would take your time, and if you would ask them other questions, like, think about it. What do you want a mentor to do? You want a mentor to help guide your career or your career search or your business or whatever you're trying to do, right? And so what specifically do you need help in? And ask them a specific question. Like, maybe you need help with your elevator pitch. We're talking about networking right now, so maybe you need help with your elevator pitch, right? And somebody can mentor you in that. And so you can say, listen, I noticed that you do a brilliant elevator pitch. I'd love to give you an example of mine at some point in the future and get your critique on it and see what you'd be willing to think. Would you be willing to help me with that just for a few minutes? The person who says no to that, it's a lot about their character that you can find it out if they say no to something, a simple, easy request like that. Because one, you've said, I'm impressed with you. I think there's something special about you. I think I can learn from you. Would you be willing to spend a few minutes with teaching me something? A person who says no to that is a person who recognizes an opportunity in life to be meaningful to another person and can say no. That's a horrible person. I don't think, I mean, if they said, you know what, I would love to. I don't know when I'm going to find the time for it, but let's work on it. That I can accept. But if they just flat out said no, I'm not going to help you with that. What does that say about their character? So who's going to say that? No one's going to say that. And most people are going to say, yeah. But after you do that 5 or 6 times with a person, you know what you have? A mentor. You don't have to ask permission to have somebody mentor you. You just have to ask them some questions long enough for them to opt in. They're going to be your mentor. And why should you have one? You should have 20. You know, if you can, again, your bandwidth, right? If you can handle a lot, then you should have a lot. But however, whatever your needs are, there's people who can help you with it. You just have to be willing to ask them. And not ask them the big time suck question, will you be my mentor? Can you be my person? I don't know if I want to be your person. But if you have a question for me to answer based on my expertise, I'm excited about that. I'm probably going to do that. It's like somebody asking you a legal question that's right up your alley, something that you can answer like in 5 seconds. That's an easy one, right? You'll knock it over the fence every time. You know, like, oh, well, I'm not going to answer the question because, you know, they're not on the clock. What does that say about your character? Of course you would answer the question. You know what I'm saying? So I think people, they don't know how to handle experts. They don't know how to talk to people who have expertise. They don't know how to start to build a relationship. But you start by honoring the expertise. Ask them a question. If you're gifted at something and I don't ask you about it, I don't ask you about it at all, I'm not giving your gift a chance to breathe, some room to play with. It's like saying, you have a ball, but I don't want to play. Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm not interested in your ball, whatever that is. Go. I'm gonna have my jump rope over here. You play with your basketball over there, and we're done. But if I like basketball, you have a basketball. Why shouldn't we play? And I think people they boil networking into make it all complicated. It's not. It's simple. It's as simple as human behavior.
Mm-hmm. And you made a really good point, because when you go about asking anybody a question the way that you just talked about, talking about someone's expertise, hey, can I talk to you for a couple minutes about this or that? I mean, yeah, nobody's going to say no. You might be like, well, I'm super swamped this week, but yeah, sure, call me next week. Or if people ask you something that, like you said, you're interested in that is not necessarily what you do, to me, that stands out in my mind more, because people, just because they pay attention. And I know it's simple, but like I post something on, on Facebook, for example, and then someone will ask about the things that I'm passionate about. Like there's a couple attorneys in the courthouse who say, hey, Gene, have you taught any body pump classes lately? You taught any of your fitness classes? And I'm like, oh, they remembered, it feels nice. So yeah. And it's not about any sort of I mean, yeah, it's small talk. I don't know if you'd really say that's super.
No, that's big talk, because that's important to you.
It is important to me, and so they know that.
If it's not important to you, if it's just something general that doesn't mean anything to anybody, then it's small talk.
Yeah.
Like the weather. Like, really? We all came through this, coming in, oh, the traffic is bad out there. We all came through the same traffic. Did we come here to talk about traffic? No, we come here to talk about something else. Let's talk about what we came here to talk about, not traffic. Unless you have a sucking chest wound, why are we talking about something other than the purpose for us being here right now? Mm-hmm. It's like that to me makes no sense at all. And people who try to, I don't know how to I want to warm up to a conversation. We have 15 minutes. We don't have time to warm up. Mm-hmm. Warm up before you get in the room. Warm up before you come to the party. Warm up before you get in the game. You don't get in the game and then want to warm up. You're in the game. It's playtime.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're there, it's time to play, as you say.
Right. And people are even like virtually networking right now. One of the things that irritates me is people who are not paying attention to other people, and you can see them. They're off doing something else on their computer, or you call them and it's their turn to talk, and they go, oh, it's my turn. How disrespectful is that? That's not a person I'm going to invite into my network. Because if you're so busy that you can't even attend a meeting that you want to attend, maybe you shouldn't attend that meeting, because you're looking bad. You're looking like a person who's not engaged, who doesn't play well with others. Mm-hmm. I don't want you on my team. So people don't understand everything you do, and even things you don't do or say. People consider that. That's a part of your character.
Mm-hmm. Well, that goes back to the bandwidth that you said earlier. If you don't have time to listen to people, then how are you ever going to get any relationship with them? Because that's the first step. Listen, promise, and then follow up and follow through. Right?
That's right. Oh, you're good. I got to get you on the team. You're pretty good.
I pay attention. I listen. I also have to give a plug for Coach Powell's Coffee, Tea, You and Me, which is every Friday at 3. It's now virtual, but the past few weeks, I guess we're in a series right now, right? You're talking about making and keeping the right relationships. Is that the point of your series, or was that just last week?
So I'm going through the entire 9-step program. I've gone through the first 3 steps, so I'm finished with that. And so we're going to start the next 3 steps, so it's the next series. And the next series, the first series is about getting to know people, really getting to know people, getting to understand people, really understanding how to work with them and all that kind of stuff. The next series is about how to enjoy that, how to really, really start to move from I know you to I like you. And then the last 3 steps in the series is start to really maximizing the trust. And so you start small with small things that you can build trust with, and you can build character with, and you get to know people around, and then you kind of grow and grow and grow and grow and grow up to the 9th step, which is really when you've maximized trust. This is when you're ready to bring somebody into the inner circle. You know, when you that's it. They've gotten to the highest level of trust that you need to give them in order to introduce them now to everyone else that you have a high level of respect and trust with. And that's what, that's the master level. You get it. So we're going through the whole series. Now each of these of the 9 steps is a full day course, really. It's a lot of complicated material, but I try to boil it down into, small bites, and just so that, because, people can move through it quite easily at Coffee, Tea, You and Me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I answered the question, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So where are we now? We're at 1 hour and 20 minutes. It looks like
1 hour and 21 minutes, and I feel like
I don't see the chat, so I don't know what's going on in the chat room. I think only you can see the chat.
Well, the last thing that I see is Sarah White said she was a cat person because we were talking about dogs.
I love Sarah.
But Lisa's comment for some reason is showing up on Facebook instead of in the chat. She said, "Hello, Coach."
Oh, great. Who's Lisa? Does she have a full name, or do you know?
Lisa, she said she used to come to your Coffee, Tea, You and Me back when it met at Panera in Clifton.
Gotcha. I know Lisa. Hi, Lisa. If you're still out there, say hi. I'm saying hi.
Oh, Sarah's still here. She says,
okay.
Oh, I guess she thought we're done. She said, you all are the best. Talk to you again soon.
Awesome.
I got to give a shout out to Sarah, though. Sarah's been attending a lot of my lives. I know Sarah's attending Marvin's. I see Sarah at the round table. Sarah and I actually did meet up earlier this week and had a good conversation. And
wow.
I'm going to try to convince my husband to go to the Lost Dog Cafe and sit outside and have a pizza on the patio.
I'd love to, but I'm under strict quarantine in my house. If I even go out and play, I'm gonna have to stay here in this office right here. I have to stay right here for 14 days. I'm not able to go upstairs and play with the rest of the family. They'll bring me food and everything, so I'm not getting in trouble. But I can't wait till this COVID virus is diminished, because that's the first thing I'm going to do is come play with Sarah.
Yes. Well, if they will deliver, I will order it, because I'm more on the conservative side. I don't like to venture out too much.
Yeah.
But I do promise you, Sarah, that one day I will be on a patio eating pizza.
I just can't risk it. I will risk it personally, but the family, they'll quarantine me. My girls aren't playing around. They'll just quarantine me. So I can't afford to be quarantined in my own house. That I won't tolerate. So yeah. I'm just going to be a good boy and do as I'm told.
Well, Marvin and I are actually both in Centerville. I'm in Manassas right now in my office, but I live in Centerville. So, Sarah, if you guys would deliver to Centerville, I don't know if you can. We'll order some pizzas.
Yep.
Oh, she was move our way, or I will build you a restaurant closer.
Yes.
I don't think so.
You're gonna have to meet me on the road. I'll come and pick it up.
We got to all three work together and figure out how this is going to work, because I'm not moving. Yeah. So
not moving. I love Centerville.
Me too.
I thought you had a court date you had to get to.
I do. My office is right by the courthouse, for anybody that does not know that. So as soon as we are done here, that's where I'm going. I'm going to court. Oh, Sarah said she might be able to hook us up. See, this is why I said I could just go all day. So, Marvin, we'll just have to talk again another time.
All right, because I got to get ready for my next broadcast that's coming up, and I have not even ready yet. So.
Oh, I'm sure you know what you're going to talk about.
Well, I know what I'm going to talk about, but I need to invite some more people to it. I got to do some marketing.
Okay. So Marvin's talking about his Coffee Tea, You and Me, which is at 3 o'clock on his Facebook page. Marvin, if you will put a link to your Facebook page in the comments here so people can go and check it out. He's
Cool.
he's going to be talking more about building the right relationships. I think right now he said he's starting the series about getting people to like you, and then about trust. Is that where we're starting today? Getting people to like you?
Absolutely. Today we're talking about the next 3 steps in a 9-step process, and those 3 steps are all about is enjoying the relationship, learning how first we learn how to start the relationship. Now we learn how to enjoy the relationship, and just talk about really getting connected, really having deeper, meaningful, personal connections with people, and how to establish a win-win strategy that everybody enjoys with every individual that you meet. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. I just turned off the video camera for a second. At least I can't see you. I hope you can see me. Can you still see me?
Yeah, we can see you. We're still on.
Okay, great. Because I can't see you, but I'm trying to figure out if I can find a link to that event and then put it in the chat so that other people can find the link as well. So give me a couple seconds. Ask me another question while I'm working on that.
Uh-oh. That's going to open up Pandora's box.
I love Pandora's box.
How can you tell if somebody is worth spending the time to get to know if you want to play with them, right? Because you probably how do you is there a way to even know that from the beginning, or once you get into a conversation trying to get to know if you can work with them and leverage your relationships and talents?
Asking great questions, and people think that oftentimes in networking they have to speak, and that speaking is the most important part. Having a set of really good questions that you want to ask people are a great step into actually moving your network forward and creating opportunities with your network. And so I think to some people, they want to try to present something, and it's really not that important. It's more important to be able to say, oh, hey, great, I love what you had to say about whatever that was you talked about, or I love what you're wearing, or I love what you're thinking about, or the way you're doing, the way you present yourself, whatever that is. I want to ask you a couple quick questions. If this was a perfect environment right now, if everything worked out the way you want it to work out for you, what would happen today? What would happen? What would be going on? What would you be able to be, do, and have as a result of it? When you ask a question like that, you get people talking about what they care about. You get people talking about what's important to them. You get people talking about what's special and what they need to have and what they need to see, what they like to see. And whether or not it's possible is not necessarily up to you, but being willing to help them work on it is something that will definitely endear you to them. And so, I give you a classic example. I was with I was at a networking function maybe back in November, and my friend introduced me to another young lady who was standing right next to him, and he just said, "This is Margaret. Margaret, this is Marvin. Marvin is amazing. You want to talk to Marvin?" And I was like, "Okay, so I don't know what to talk to this person about." And so I said, "Hey, Margaret, so why are you here today, and what do you hope to gain from being here today?" Opened up a whole conversation where she was telling me what she does and how long she's been doing it, and I asked another question. I said, "So when Margaret, when you let your hair down, what do you do for fun?" And she said, "What I really like to do is play chess and tennis." And I said, "Tennis?" All of a sudden we're talking about, I love racket sports too. I grew up playing tennis, and I now play racket. I actually teach and coach and train and play racquetball a lot. And she goes, "Well, I haven't tried to play racquetball." We ended up, I ended up giving her a free racquetball lesson. And we're great friends to this day, because we quickly moved the conversation into something that was meaningful, that we can make some commitments around. And it just so happened that, in that same conversation where she told me she loved tennis, I told her I used to love tennis a lot, and now I play racquetball. And I was able to ask her, "Hey, if I could give you a free racquetball lesson, would it something you'd be interested in?" She said, "Sure." So we met up at the racquetball court. We played. We had a great time. I taught her some tips and some strategies and how to crush it. Is not now she. And I think after that she grabbed her husband, brought him to the racquetball court and just trashed him, and she beat him terribly. but but she enjoyed that because I taught her how to play, kind of thing. And we're just best of friends now to this day. So, you have to have something that you can share, something that you're willing to give, something that you're willing to participate in and engage with people around. For me, oftentimes it's around either racquetball or content that I've created that help people understand how to do networking a little bit better. I may share that with them. I may share, some of the resources or tools that I have, or other people that I know who are good at certain things, depending on how they answer that question. What is it that if your life was perfect, what would you be, do, or have that you can't right now? It's a great question, but it opens up a conversation to a whole lot of really good stuff with people. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Did that show up in the link? Did that chat that I have? Oh, there are the live comments. No wonder I could. All right, I see what's going on now. I had it on private chat, not on live comments, and so I couldn't see live comments. Well, I see everybody out there now. Oh, okay.
Well, Sarah asked a question. I think we have to make that the last question. And Marvin, if you are willing to spend your time, I'd love to talk to you again because I always get something out of these conversations. But Sarah asked, how can you tell if someone is interested in playing with you? And that is actually a really good question and a great way to end because that's actually a huge question.
When they're asking you the right questions, when they're asking you the questions that light you up, the questions that are exciting to you, they're leaning in. They're indicating that there's something about you that's special, and they're wanting to explore more of that. And so again, if I'm talking to somebody and I let them know that I teach and train and play racquetball, and they go, okay, moving on to something else, and they don't key in on that, then I know they're not interested in me. They're not interested in talking to me any further. You don't have to be interested in racquetball to be interested in why I'm interested in racquetball. Or why I love doing that, or whatever it is. So if you're not taking any interest in the things that I'm interested in, then you're simultaneously not taking an interest in me. It's like you talking about working out. If I go, working out, let's talk about something. Let's talk about junk food. And I'm like, okay, I'm not paying attention to what you're interested in. Then I'm not interested in you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people don't get that. If you don't want to pay attention to other people, networking is a bad thing for you to even try. Because you just have to pay attention.
Sarah said that I love that answer. Thank you.
I love you too, Sarah.
Yeah, and I everybody needs to watch this. Seriously, Marvin, everything that you were talking about, it just really, shines a light on everything. It's like, why are people not happy with networking? Why are people not seeing results? Sometimes we probably get to the point where we don't even want to network anymore or do certain things just because a variety of things. We're not seeing results. People aren't treating us well. They're not paying attention to us. And I feel like that way sometimes too, because I do a lot of networking, and I shouldn't even use that term because I'm not using it right. But yeah, I mean, seriously, this last hour and a half was just really, really helpful. It made me think about a lot of things, and I'm sure it made Sarah and Darren well, Darren probably already knows, but it made everybody else think too.
So the one thing I'm going to leave you guys with is this. Think of networking as a high-level, high-skilled game. If you're in the game and you don't know the rules and you don't know the basics and you don't know how to play, you can't do it well. It's just not possible. And none of us are born to this thing. This is something that we have to, there's a reason why the divorce rate is so high. We can't even do personal relationships well. Now, let's talk about now when we're talking about business relationships where our whole entire careers are at stake. There's no way for us to do that well either. There's no school. There's no PhD class in networking. There's not even networking 101 in any college. right? So these are things that, we have to actually work on and develop the skills to do this. If we try to play the game when we don't have the skills, we're going to suck at it. And so learn the game, learn it, read the books, read the techniques. The biggest book that I think that you could ever have. There it is. How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is networking 101, guys. This is the basic book that, I think that when Mr. Carnegie wrote that book, he just didn't have to write anything else, because it's still, everybody refers to it. Every book that I've read, or even participated in any kind of way, it's all referred back to the same strategies and the same lessons that he has put together. How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's basic. But you got to think about that when you walk out of the room, when you walk out of your house or log on to the internet. You got to think, what are the rules here? What am I supposed to do? How do I play at a high level? Do you want to play like Michael Jordan? Then you have to practice. You have to work on it. You have to, learn the skills, the tactics, the techniques, and then make them your own. If you can't give a good basic, personal presentation off the hip, then practice it. Because if you're shooting from the hip and you fumble around, people are going to recognize that you don't know what you're talking about. You're not good at this. You suck. And nobody wants to pay attention to people who suck. This is not going to work. This is a people game. You have to know how to play with people. All right. I don't see anything else in the chat that's exciting that you want to talk about. Might be able to hook you up. Me too. I see. It's all Sarah commenting back. Cat person. Now I can see the chat. That's going to be distracting to me. I should go back to private chat.
Well, I want to thank everybody.
I can't respond to the live comments. It doesn't give me a place to play with that. I can see them, but I can't engage.
Well, I'm gonna have to work on this. The StreamYard thing is kind of new to me. I am able to type and respond, and I think it goes right on. It does go right on Facebook because I'll figure it out, Marvin. I'll figure it out before the next time you and I. Sarah says I have to work soon. So do I, Sarah. I gotta go. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for staying the whole time. Thank you, everybody else. Oh, yeah, I'll see you for coffee in a bit, she says.
Ciao for now.
Yes. So, Coach Powell, Marvin, thank you so much for taking your time, spending your the middle of your day with me. I really do appreciate it. Everybody who watched this live and who will watch the replay is going to get a lot out of it. So, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate being in your concentric circles, as I call them, because, I'm bold and I'm trying to get into the inner circle. So we'll see if I get there one day. But
follow the 9 steps. You go right in.
I'm going to watch every Coffee to You and Me so I can follow all the steps adequately.
Awesome.
Right? Okay. All right. Well, thank you again so much. I'll see you guys all next time. Have a good weekend, Marvin.